You're falling asleep. Not asleep yet. That soft, sinking part where the room goes quiet and your thoughts stop making sense to you. And then, out of nowhere, your whole body kicks, like you missed a step on a staircase that isn't there. Your heart is suddenly slamming against your ribs, and you're staring at the ceiling in the dark, wondering what on earth just happened to you. That's a glitch. Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech. That's a genuine breakdown in the handoff between two systems that are supposed to shut down in a very specific order, and sometimes just don't. Your brain has roughly a dozen of these. Most people will experience at least 4 of them in their lifetime, and almost nobody knows they have names. Here's the thing, nobody tells you about sleep. You don't fall asleep, not as one single event. Falling asleep is more like an airline shutting down a plane after a long flight. Consciousness powers off. Motor control powers off. Memory formation powers off. Sensory processing powers off. Each one on its own timer, each one managed by a different region of the brain, and they're supposed to fire in a tidy, predictable sequence. And they usually do, around 400 billion times a night across the human species. This sequence runs cleanly, and you never notice a thing. But the sequence has no supervisor. There's nothing standing over it checking that step 3 finished before step 4 begins. So when the timing slips, even by a few seconds, you get a window where you are half shut down, awake in one system, asleep in another. That window is where every single thing in this video lives, and I'm going to take you through them in order, starting with the ones almost everyone has felt, and ending with the one that makes people genuinely not want to go to bed tonight. So let's start with the one from the very beginning. It's called a hypnic jerk, or a sleep start, and around 70% of people get it at some point. Here's what's actually happening. As you drift off, your muscles start receiving the power down signal. Muscle tone drops. Your limbs get heavy. Completely normal, exactly as designed. But your brain is also constantly monitoring your body's position in space, and when muscle tone drops fast enough, the signal traveling back up looks, to a very old, very literal part of your brainstem, exactly like the sensation of falling. So it does what it was built to do. It sends out an emergency contraction. Grab something. Catch yourself. Now, there's a theory about why this exists that completely reframes the whole experience once you hear it. Our primate ancestors slept in trees. For them, muscles going slack and about to fall out of a tree and die were functionally the same problem. A reflex that yanks you awake the instant your grip loosens isn't a bug at all. It's a safety system that just happened to outlive the tree. And the falling sensation itself? Your dreaming mind, scrambling to explain a jolt it never scheduled, generates that image after the fact. It's a story written in a few hundred milliseconds to justify a sensation that already happened. You didn't dream of falling and then jerk awake. You jerked, and your brain invented the fall to explain it. Now let's look at the opposite failure. During REM sleep, your brain paralyzes you. Deliberately, a cluster of cells in your brainstem floods your motor neurons with inhibitory signals and effectively cuts the cable between intention and muscle. This is called REM atonia, and it exists for a very good reason, so you don't physically act out whatever you happen to be dreaming. It's an excellent system. Without it, people get hurt. But the paralysis is supposed to lift before consciousness comes back. When that order reverses, when the lights come back on while the cable is still cut, you wake up inside a body that will not move. You're aware. Your eyes can move. You're still breathing because your diaphragm runs on an entirely separate circuit, but you cannot move a finger, cannot speak, cannot roll over, cannot call out. And it gets worse than that. Because you're still partially in REM, the dream-generating machinery is still running. It's still producing content, and it's now layering that content onto the actual room you are actually looking at. This is why sleep paralysis hallucinations are so eerily specific and so consistent across the entire world. A presence in the room, crushing weight on the chest, a shadowed figure standing by the door or at the foot of the bed. People in Newfoundland called it the old hag. In Japan, it's Kanashibari. In Turkey, the Karabasan. Different centuries, different continents, no contact between them, and the same figure shows up in all of them. Your brain in that state is running threat detection with the safety off, in a body that cannot respond, using eyes that are only half working. It concludes there's something in the room, so it renders one. The reassuring part, and I want to say this clearly, is that it always ends. Every single episode ends, usually within a couple of minutes, and it has never physically harmed anyone. The next one has the worst name in all of medicine, and the name is doing it no favors whatsoever, because nothing explodes and nothing is damaged. Exploding head syndrome is when you're drifting off and suddenly hear an enormous crash, a door slamming, a gunshot, a burst of static, sometimes a flash of light along with it. You bolt upright, absolutely convinced that something in your house has just broken. Nothing did. There was no sound at all. Remember the shutdown sequence? As you fall asleep, your brain progressively silences the auditory processing regions, pulling the channels down one by one like an engineer bringing down faders at the end of a recording session. Sometimes, instead of pulling them down, the system fires them all at once. You get a burst of neural activity across every auditory region simultaneously, and your brain has no category whatsoever for all frequencies firing at once with no external source. So it does the only thing it can do with that data. It interprets it as an extremely loud noise. You're not hearing a sound. You're hearing your own auditory cortex power down badly. It's harmless, it's more common in people who are stressed or sleep-deprived, and a huge number of people who experience it never tell anyone, because "I heard an explosion that wasn't there" is a genuinely hard sentence to say out loud to another human being. Between being awake and being asleep, there's a real third state. It has a proper name, hypnagogia, and it might be the most creatively fertile few minutes of your entire day. In hypnagogia, your dream systems are already online, but your critical faculty hasn't fully shut down yet. So you get dream content, and you can still partly stand outside it and observe it happening. Faces that aren't anyone you've ever met. Geometric patterns folding endlessly through each other. Sentences that feel genuinely profound while you're hearing them and turn to complete gibberish the second you write them down. The sensation of your body being much larger or much smaller than it actually is. Salvador Dali used to nap in a chair holding a metal key over a plate. The instant he crossed over into real sleep, his hand would relax, the key would hit the plate, and the sound would wake him, with the hypnagogic imagery still fresh in his head. He built entire paintings out of that gap. Edison did almost exactly the same thing with steel balls. Two people, working in completely different fields, independently worked out that the glitch was worth mining. Then there's the false awakening. You wake up, you get out of bed, you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, start getting dressed for the day. And then you wake up, still in bed. None of it happened. A false awakening is your brain running an extremely high-fidelity simulation of your own bedroom and your own morning routine. Because it has all that footage. It's watched you do it thousands of times. The rendering is good enough that there's usually no moment of suspicion at all. Some people loop 4, 5, 8 times in a row. Wake up, wake up again. There are documented cases of people stuck in a chain of them for what felt like an hour, each layer completely convincing while they were inside it. And the detail people report most often is that something in the room is slightly wrong. A door on the wrong wall. Light coming from a direction it physically can't come from. A phone showing a time that makes no sense. Or text that rearranges itself when you look at it twice. Your brain built that room from memory, and memory has gaps. It fills them with approximations. And the approximations are exactly where the seams show through. Everything so far has been about sleep starting badly. Now let's talk about sleep not stopping, because that's where this gets genuinely strange. If sleep paralysis is the paralysis staying switched on too long, REM sleep behavior disorder is the paralysis never switching on at all. The dream runs. The motor commands go out to the body. and nothing stops them. People with RBD physically perform their dreams, punching, running, shouting, diving off the bed. And this isn't sleepwalking. Sleepwalkers are in deep non-REM sleep, their eyes are open, their faces are completely blank. RBD is different. The person's eyes are closed, and they're fully immersed in a dream narrative, executing it with their actual arms and legs. Partners are usually the ones who notice first, and often the reason it ever gets diagnosed. It's worth taking seriously, too, because RBD is one of the more reliable early indicators neurologists watch for. It can show up years before other symptoms of certain neurological conditions appear, which makes this particular glitch, occasionally, the most useful warning a body ever gives. Sleep talking is a partial version of the same failure. The motor block is holding fine for your arms and legs, but it's leaking around the muscles of speech. Most of it is meaningless. Fragments, half-words, the verbal equivalent of a stuck key on a keyboard. But a small percentage is fully formed, grammatical and conversational. People have held entire back-and-forth exchanges while completely asleep and remembered absolutely none of it. And here's the part that tends to unsettle people. Sleep talkers are usually not narrating their dream. Studies where researchers wake talkers immediately find that the speech and the dream content frequently don't match at all. Something in there is generating language. It just isn't the part of you that was doing the dreaming. Then there's the one that isn't really a glitch at all. It's a system so precise it just looks like one. You wake up 30 seconds before your alarm, consistently, for years. Your body runs a circadian clock accurate to within minutes, and it starts preparing for waking about an hour in advance by releasing cortisol in a slowly rising curve. When you have a reliable wake time, that curve gets calibrated to it. Your body isn't reacting to the alarm at all. It's beating the alarm. On purpose. Because being jolted out of deep sleep is genuinely worse for you than waking gradually, and after enough repetitions, your physiology would frankly rather handle the scheduling itself. Which raises a slightly uncomfortable question about who's actually running your mornings. Sleep inertia is the next one, and you've definitely had it. You're awake, you're standing up, and you are completely useless. Sleep inertia is that 20 to 30-minute window after waking where your prefrontal cortex, decision-making, judgment, planning, is still offline while everything else has already booted up. Measured cognitive performance during severe sleep inertia has been found comparable to legal intoxication levels. It's at its absolute worst when you wake out of deep, slow-wave sleep, which is exactly what happens when you nap for 90 minutes and get dragged out at the bottom of a cycle. It's the whole reason the 45-minute nap is a trap and the 20-minute nap isn't. For that window, you are awake without being fully assembled. There's also a rare condition where a headache wakes someone at almost exactly the same time every single night. Same time, night after night. It's called hypnic headache, nicknamed the alarm clock headache, and it's tied to REM cycles. Something in the sleep architecture is triggering a pain response on a schedule. What makes it genuinely strange is the precision of it. Not sometime in the night, 2:47, then 2:49, then 2:46. Something in there is counting. And then there are people who get up in the night, walk to the kitchen, prepare food, eat it, and go back to bed with no memory of any of it. Sleep-related eating is the higher function version of sleepwalking. The person isn't stumbling around bumping into furniture. They're operating appliances, opening packaging, making decisions. But judgment is entirely gone, so the choices get strange. Raw ingredients, bizarre combinations, occasionally things that aren't food at all. What's genuinely unsettling here is what it proves. Complex, goal-directed, multi-step behavior can run all the way to completion with the conscious narrator entirely absent. You can do things, real things, in the real world, and there can be nobody home to remember them. Which brings me to the last one. There's a state where sleep paralysis, hypnagogic hallucination, and a false awakening all happen at the same time. You wake up. The room is your room. You cannot move, and there is something standing in the doorway, except you never actually woke up. The room is generated, the paralysis is real, and the figure is being rendered by threat detection, running completely unsupervised inside a simulated version of your own bedroom. And when you finally do wake up, really wake up this time, you're in the same bed, in the same room, and every detail matches. There is no way to tell, from the inside, which of the two was real. That's the actual reason these experiences have generated folklore in every culture on Earth. Not because people were superstitious or stupid, because the experience is genuinely indistinguishable from a real event. And for most of human history, the honest interpretation of something was in my room and I could not move was that something was in the room. So here's what all of these have in common. None of them are your brain failing. Every single one is your brain doing something completely correct at the wrong moment. The falling reflex is correct. It's just not in a tree anymore. The paralysis is correct. It just outstayed the dream. The threat detection is correct. It just had no working eyes to check with. You are not one system. You're a stack of them, each shutting down on its own schedule. And the only reason you experience yourself as a single continuous person at all is that they usually agree on the timing. Tonight, they'll run the sequence again. They'll probably get it right. If you've had one of these and never knew it had a name, tell me which one down in the comments. Some of them are far more common than people think, and almost everyone who experiences one assumes they're the only one it's ever happened to.